Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough, and here's a mini dose of Dr. Debbie, where I'm sharing tips, suggestions, strategies, and sometimes just a little motivation to have you move past your betrayal once and for all. Hi there. I can't believe we're on episode 418, 418 episodes. And 418 is a very significant number for me. First of all, I have 4 kids. 18 is a lucky number. I was born at 4:18 a.m. I have a daughter whose birthday is April 18th. So it just seemed so appropriate to talk about kids today. And when I talk about when I say talk about the kids, I'm talking about how your kids are managing your betrayal, the betrayal experience that they're going through as well. Sometimes we think, it's so much for us to manage. We can forget that the kids are impacted just, in such a different way, but so significantly. And just yesterday, every other week we have an open Q&A with me within the PBT Institute with the entire community. And there was a question about this. And the question was that the betrayal happened a while ago and the kids didn't know about it, but now the kids are older. They're young adults. And what happens now? Because the betrayed, I was in a call with the betrayed. We have betrayers too. That's a separate community, separate call. But this one was with the betrayed. And she was feeling like, I haven't been myself. And my kids sense that something's off. And I feel like it's time. It's time to come clean. And so we unpacked this from lots of different angles. And I want to share this with you because you may be going through this as well. The first thing I said is, I don't believe there's only one way to do this or there's any right or wrong. I think every family has their own reasons for letting the kids know how much of the betrayal, whatever it is. So I trust that every family knows best. That's the first thing. Then I addressed it from the rebuilding part of this. And the idea here is, if your partner is unwilling to allow you, there's no, what I mean by allow, there's no whatever, but to share this with the kids. And if they're so strict and bent on, no, the kids shouldn't know this. Well, you want to think about this. When you're rebuilding, you don't want to rebuild with the same person who betrayed you. You want to rebuild with someone entirely new. And I get it. There's a tremendous amount of shame and awkwardness and fear of judgment. And, they want to be looked at a certain way. But what's happening if the betrayer knows you're taking the full hit of this, feeling that, you're at risk of your kids finding out from someone else? And now the betrayed is looked at as they've betrayed the kids as well because they weren't honest. And if the betrayer is sort of okay with that, I want you to unpack that a little bit, because what's the message you're getting there about the betrayer? Have they fully changed if they're not willing to come clean? I mean, think about how it was for you when you didn't know about your betrayal. You didn't even know you were being lied to, deceived, and then all of a sudden you found out, and now there's all that tremendous amount of work to rebuild. But think about it. If the betrayer is unwilling to have you have this conversation, or with the two of you have this conversation with the kids, what's that saying? And how do you feel about knowing that the betrayer knows you're really deeply uncomfortable with this, but you're just supposed to take the hit because the betrayer is uncomfortable? Even in my study, it was, I saw consistently how the betrayed struggles and suffers in silence and pays the price for this in symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. And they do this for the betrayer. But like I said, if you're rebuilding something entirely brand spanking new, check and see, is the betrayer new if they're really unwilling to come clean? I'm not saying any of this is easy. It's a full-blown reckoning of everything. But that's where everything crashes and burns and you rebuild something entirely new. So then we unpack that a little bit. Then the next part of this is, what if, because she was saying how some other people know, other relatives know. So I said, okay, well, what happens if now that the kids are older, if someone slips and someone happens to mention this experience and they find out from someone else? What happens with that? Well, the kids are going to feel like that the betrayed has betrayed them, because why is it that they're finding out from someone else and not from their own parent? So you see how this could be perceived as a betrayal as well. And then kids are so smart. They just know. So if you're trying to pull it off like you're okay and they know you're not, what message is that sending? What's the lesson they're learning about managing your feelings, managing your emotions, dealing, healing, all of it? What's the message that's being built and being created? And also, if you're rebuilding with your partner and they're seeing this level of discomfort, remember, everything is energy. Everything we feel so much more than we can even express. So even though something's not outwardly expressed, we feel it. Like, think about it. Have you ever gone into a room and the energy just feels really dark, or really, just closed, or angry, or there's just an emotion, or there's a feeling? You feel it. You feel it. And kids are so perceptive, especially with their parents and those they're closest to. So think about that as well. So then, we unpack that as well. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, everybody has their own way of dealing and not dealing. Let's just say you decide, okay, you know what? It's time. The kids need to know. Okay. And if that's the decision, now, very different experience when we're talking about young kids. They may not even understand. And maybe when they're older, in some way, on some level, you may want to share. But I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about as the kids are older. So, I also asked her, the first thing, if you really feel that this is something that you want to do, the first thing you want to do is check your intentions. Now, why do you check your intentions? Because you want to know it's coming from a clean, clear place. You don't want to, this is, if the intention is, I've been holding out and I've been so good about this and I just want to throw the betrayer under the bus. Well, you know what? That's not a really good intention. So I would reconsider that. But if the intention is, I love my kids, I want them to know what's going on here. We're working so hard at, rebuilding something. I want them to see kind of what's going on here. And so we can all grow together. Whatever the intention is, like, check your intentions. So assuming your intentions are good, are healthy, are clear. Okay. The next thing I said to her was, this is one of those things, as you're moving through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough, very likely so much you've been doing in the past, the decisions you've been making, the way you've been going about things has been for everybody else's sake. Maybe you've been a people pleaser. Maybe you were conditioned to just take care of everybody else, and then you could take care of yourself if and when everybody else's needs are met. This is so typical. I see this especially for women. Men can experience this too, but I see this especially for women. And then, of course, by the time everybody else's needs are met, you're exhausted and there's nothing left for your own self-care. So when it comes to healing from betrayal, and when it comes to, especially if you're moving out of stage 3, the most common place we get stuck, and moving into stages 4 and 5, it is really, it can feel so awkward and so uncomfortable because this could be the first time you're ever thinking about you. This could be the first time you're ever considering your own needs. This could be the first time you're making decisions on your behalf for yourself, in a way that suits you, that helps you. So that right there is such a sign of growth. But this is what happens when we're healing. So she was in this place where she really wanted She really wanted to come clean. She didn't want to have anything she was hiding from the kids. She wanted them to know she's struggling with this, but she's working through it, and it has nothing to do with them. And the behavior that she's been exhibiting is because she's having a hard time here. And the intentions are good. It wasn't to throw the betrayer under the bus, it was because she's ready to heal, and this is part of her healing. So, okay, the decision's been made. Now what do you do? What do you do with that? Well, you can, if let's say the betrayer isn't on board or is on board, that's one thing. You may want to have a conversation together with the kids and say, hey, hey kids, we need a family meeting here. We want you to know what's been going on. Well, of course you don't need to share all the details, because what's the point of that? That's one of those things where as long as you share what the experience, really almost like just the basics, but more importantly, what the reason why you've been sort of acting the way you've been, and showing up the way you've been, and then kind of wrapping it up with what you are doing to heal, what you are doing to move through. Now, in my scenario, my husband was the one who told our kids. So it sort of happened to us, for us, however you want to put it. And I remember it was so interesting because, there was this, my husband was out of the house after that. I was like, that's it. We're done. I had no intention of rebuilding. That was the deal breaker. And I remember really saying to my kids, I have no idea how I'm going to move through this, but you will see me, you're seeing me crash. You will see me rise. I have no idea how, but I will. And I want you to know that this has absolutely nothing to do with you. I love you all with every cell of my being, and I'm going to figure this out. Now, here's what's so interesting. And if you have more than one child, they are so different. Well, all four of my kids couldn't be more different than one another. 2 girls, 2 boys, couldn't be more different. And each one of them dealt with this in such a different and unique way. And I remember having conversations with each of them, and they were all so different, but it was so interesting because I was so afraid they would hate him, just really hate him. And to be honest, in the beginning, they had a really hard time, because here it was, 4 teenage kids, like, you did what to mom? And they were furious. And I think that's probably why he healed to the level that he did, because when you have your 4 teenage kids looking at you like, what? If anything has you wake up and realize what's important, it's losing the most important people in your life. So that was a huge wake-up call for him. And what he did was earn back the trust with each of them in the way they needed. And I think, I've seen, in our rebuild program, we have the betrayers. The ones who heal the most are the ones who are all in. They are so done with the version of them that was lying, being deceptive, hiding, all of it. And it's like they've crashed and burned. It's not like, they have, as significantly as the betrayed, where the betrayed is it is this psychological earthquake. Your world is compartmentalized into 2 camps: before it happened, after it happened. And now you're looking at the rubble of what was, and you're saying, what do I do with this now? And you start picking up your pieces. You take all the parts you love, you leave behind everything that no longer serves, and you deliberately and intentionally recreate yourself. Well, it's the same thing for the betrayer. And I remember in my husband's experience, that's exactly what he did as well. And it was such a profound wake-up call for him. He was so disgusted with who he was. And listen, I can't even imagine what that must feel like, to feel the shame of something like that. So, as the betrayed, we have such painful feelings we move through. But if you haven't done the betraying, you don't have the experience of shame, of deliberately and intentionally breaking someone's heart. So, you don't have that on your resume. And anyway, so when it comes time to, to the kids, so much of this is, and I get it, when you're rebuilding, the betrayer, very often the interest is in the partner, the person who they deliberately hurt. And it's sort of like, everyone's been sprayed with bullets here, in this shooting, and the kids take a huge hit. So it's so important to just let the kids know. And I'm saying, if you're deciding that you want to share this with the kids, letting the kids know, number one, this had nothing to do with the kids, just as it had nothing to do with the betrayed. This is someone else's pain, someone else's trauma, someone else's unhealed whatever, and they chose to betray, to numb, avoid, distract, whatever it was. Never, ever, ever is that a reason, and that it's okay to betray, but it has nothing to do with the betrayed. It also has nothing to do with the kids. And this is an important message to get across, because when it comes to kids, they're always thinking, what did I do? How was I, what could I have done to prevent this? Or who knows what's going on in their head. But this is where it's really important to have these meetings with your kids and ask them, how are you doing with all of this? Let me check in with you. What's going on? What does this have you feel about relationships and about trust? All of it. And be willing to have these really tough conversations. And then, I remember as in this healing process, and it was grueling. My husband and I started just speaking. Of course, we had to with the kids, and then eventually started dating again, and that was terrifying, but I wasn't willing to settle. So I remember him saying, what do I read? What do I do? And one of the most important things for me, it was so interesting because I had always been really, it's been like close to 25, 30 years now, very spiritual. And it always gave me the sense of connection. And whether that's the spiritual side of your religion, just spirituality, whatever. And it gave me this sense of connection. And, for some reason, that was really, really important to me. And I suggested a few books. He took to it. It was dramatically changing how he was showing up. And it was so interesting because then he was really, I remember he really was so impacted by the late Dr. Wayne Dyer. And then he started passing out Wayne Dyer DVDs and to people in his office. And I mean, he just took it to a whole other level. But there was something about seeing things from such a different perspective. And the kids would start to tell me, wow, he sounds weird. He used to blast whatever music in the car, and now he's blasting Wayne Dyer in the car. And he got rid of the fancy car. And he just, so many different things that he did. And of course, trust, it took a long time to rebuild trust with me and with the kids. But it wasn't even in the big things. It was in the little things that the kids would notice, the little things that I would notice. And so if you know my story, eventually we started dating again. And then eventually we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and the 4 kids as our bridal party. And I specifically didn't want, when we married each other again, I didn't want friends there. I didn't want it as a whole thing, because I wanted the kids to write something and share their own feelings and just in this journey, what they got from this journey. And it was so interesting to me because, as I was moving through this, they saw in me something that they hadn't seen. And they saw this strength and they saw this growth. And they also saw the willingness to just see the humanness in people. And listen, I'm not saying betrayal is a mistake. No, it's a choice. I'm not minimizing it at all. And I'm a highly sensitive empath with integrity as my highest value. So this was not something I took lightly. I mean, it wasn't even enough that I rebuilt. I had to take everyone with me. That's the level of injustice personally that betrayal had me feel. So, but it was so interesting because each one of the kids wrote about my strength and about, because I was worried, are they going to think I'm weak or a sucker or just a people pleaser? Or I was so concerned, you know. And the good thing is, in this rebuilding process, they really took that pressure off, and they said, "Mom, we're behind you no matter what you do, whatever you decide. We got you. We're behind you." So it was sort of like Team Mom, which gave me the ability to breathe and say, okay, let me see what I want to do with this, because I wasn't going to rush through this process. I wanted to know that I was coming from a healthy, clear space. And while I was doing all of this, here I was doing the study, and the 5 stages were being developed and being discovered as all of this was happening. So of course, if the research proved, oh, this helps, well, I tried it. If the research proved, no, this doesn't, I didn't. And that's one of the reasons why I was healing as quickly as I was. But then here it was, this wedding again, and each one of the kids wrote about the lessons they learned about love, about forgiveness, about second chances, about family, about all of it. And I'll tell you, I've been in the ICU for 11 days. I have lost loved ones. There is nothing that has been harder for me personally than healing and rebuilding after betrayal. Now, you know, I had my family betrayal as well. I rebuilt myself and moved along. But rebuilding something entirely new was, for me, the hardest thing I've ever done. And we see thousands of people now within the PBT Institute, just through the podcast, through the blogs, through the speaking, through the books, through the all of it, really sharing their stories of healing and moving forward. And I really just want to wrap this up by saying that trust your gut. It never lies. If you feel that it's time to share this with your kids, check your intentions, make sure it's coming from a clear space, do it in a way that's honoring and respectful of you and of your partner to the best of your ability, because this is about you now. And, you know, it's so interesting. When I wrote Trust Again, I remember sitting everybody down and telling them, you know, the story's in here. And I thought they were going to be like, oh, come on, Mom. And they were proud and they were excited. And my biggest supporter, the biggest supporter, was my husband. He said, you're going to help so many people with this. And I can't imagine what that must have felt like to just have his actions be talked about in a book and then on podcasts and on all kinds of things. But it's part of the healing. It's really part of the transformation. So if you're the betrayer, what heals shame? Bringing light to it, bringing honor to it. If you are the betrayed, this is about you now. You need to heal. And if healing means coming clean with your kids and being honest, do it in a way that's honoring and respectful. But if you can't heal because you're struggling and suffering in silence, that's not honoring to you. And that's a really important piece of this. So I hope this helps. I wanted to give you something to really think about, to consider. This is no easy task, but take the time. It is so worth it. I can tell you now, living in stage 5, living in the space of doing this hard work and healing and seeing thousands and thousands of people doing it as well, this is nothing you can't do. I'm not saying it's easy. You know, I've been saying this in many episodes. There's a saying I've been using in my 33 plus years of my career, and it's hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's one of those two. This is an example of hard now, having those tough conversations, being uncomfortable, feeling awkward, right? Easy later. Everybody is growing, building together. And you'd be amazed at the level of resilience and strength and love that you may see in your own beautiful family. So I hope this helps. I hope you gain something from this. Maybe it's even just a timeline of when and if you're going to be able to share this. You want to share this with your family. The kids are stronger than you think, and they know more than you think. But I trust that you know what's best for you and your family. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time. You need the right tools, support, and the right community to move you through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. And we have all of that within the PBT Institute. So join us at the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. There's a version of you who's so confident, healthy, peaceful, and happy on the other side of your healing, and we can't wait to help you get there. We got you. Thanks for listening, and here's to your breakthrough.